Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 793 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast, we'll be speaking with Julie. She is the mother of a child with type 1 diabetes, and Julie has ADHD. This is most of the podcast episode, besides us being delightful together and saying things that are incredibly entertaining and informative. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. As Thanksgiving approaches, please remember that those other podcasts you listen to, they put on reruns. Don't play episodes at all or give you content that they've recorded months ago that they didn't like. Not Scotty. I don't do that. Great content all week, leading right up into the new year, where we'll just explode again into 2023 with more of the Juicebox Podcast. If you're thankful for that, go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox, join the registry, and fill out the survey. It'll take you about 10 minutes. It'll support people living with type 1 diabetes. It moves diabetes research forward. You can do it from your sofa, and it supports the Juicebox Podcast. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is brought to you by AG1 from Athletic Greens. With one scoop of delicious AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of these things in just one scoop. Learn more and get started today at athleticgreens.com/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox.
I don't know. Okay.
You don't know? Do you feel, are you okay? Are you nervous?
I am so unbearably nervous that I just stared at that thing at the bottom of the email, like reschedule for like an hour while chugging coffee and taking like just a half a Xanax. No, but I feel I'm good now. Okay.
Well, let's, you're being recorded. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right.
I don't care.
Well,
I know how you roll.
Tell me your name. We'll see what's going on.
Okay. So my name is Julie. I am a mother to my son, George, who is just about to turn 14, type 1 diabetes, diagnosed January 31st, 2020. And he was 11 at the time. And I have ADHD, and so does my son. And that's about it as far as the introduction.
Julie, I'm making a Venn diagram over here. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I feel like this one's going to go about that way. Tell me.
I'm sorry. It is going to go that way. I started to make a little like a thing where I'm like, oh, I should write some stuff down. And so far, all I have is don't curse. So,
well, can I tell you something that I think might make you feel better?
Yeah.
Under pressure of like penalty of death, I don't know that I can exactly describe what a Venn diagram is. I was just
oh, okay. I know what one is because I've had to learn because like my kids were home for like 2 years with the COVID.
Can I guess, since you know? Is it one of those things where I draw like 3 circles that kind of overlap a little bit?
Yeah, it's 2 circles.
Okay.
And then the middle is what's in common. And then on the one side, I don't even know why we're talking about this. On the one side is like what's going on here in this circle. The other one is going on this circle. And what's in the middle is like what's in common.
Okay. We're talking about it because I brought it up and I'm in charge, Julie.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, good. I like that. Okay. Because my brain can go in any direction. Whatever you bring up, obviously.
I'm just trying to take the pressure off of you for a second. So, so tell me your son's name again.
My son is George.
George. Are there any other kids, or is George your only?
There are other kids. There is my daughter, who is now 11, and she does not have type 1 as of now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you married?
I am.
Okay, married.
Yes.
You have ADHD? What else you got going on?
I have, like mentally ADHD. I mean, there's a lot going on with me, but no.
I'm sorry.
ADHD.
I'm amused because I feel like you started breaking yourself up into like sections in your mind. You're like, well,
there's a lot of sections, but we'll just go with ADHD,
mm-hmm.
and we will go with definitely extreme anxiety, and as far as autoimmune, I have vitiligo.
Okay. By the way, before you had said anxiety, I'd already written it down, just assuming.
Yeah, I think in my description, I might have put that down like at least 4 times.
Oh, yeah, I didn't read that, but I was going to look at it in a little bit.
Yeah, don't bother.
You're all listening to a podcast where the prep that was done for it was the guy's like, I'll probably read it at some point while she's talking. Okay, Julie, how old are you?
47.
George, how old's George?
He will be 14 in about 7 days.
Okay, how old was he?
Probably not 7. He was 11.
11. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah, I am ready. I'm ready.
All right. When he was did you just want to go? You have something to say?
Nope. I don't just want to go.
Julie, am I going to be fighting with the motor in your brain all day?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's okay. Don't worry.
I'll explain why later. I don't feel like explaining why yet.
Don't worry. We'll get to it.
Okay.
I almost started with George. Now I'm going to start with you. ADHD.
Okay.
How old are you when you realize, like, a doctor says you have ADHD?
I was 25.
Something that was with you your whole life prior to that? You just...
My whole life.
Okay.
But as a girl or woman, it presents differently. I think that I was raised at a time in the 70s into the 80s that was probably, they thought I just probably didn't care. I didn't have parents that really pushed me. It created a lot of anxiety, but so like ADHD can just create a lot of anxiety because you don't mean to be the way you are, but you just are. And so I was never diagnosed. I really barely thought I was going to graduate high school, to be totally honest with you. I think they were like, you know what, let's just give it to her. Like, let's just give it to her. Let's just have her go.
We'll let this one out. Maybe someone will marry her and get her a house. Like that kind of thing.
By the way, back in the day, I had several teachers, because you know how they were inappropriate back in the day. But they were like, "Oh, Miss Arden," because that's my maiden name. You better marry rich, like right in front of the class. Or like my science teacher, like, hope you're going to be able to keep that beautiful smile until you,
give context
find
for people
a man.
Again. Was this the 80s?
This was the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born in 75. So I would say, like I said, all the way up to high school, it really was not, wasn't a pretty scene.
Yeah, see, I joke around. I joked around and said, like, we'll let you out of high school and hopefully some guy will buy you a house. But I'm telling you right now, like, that's a joke based in how people thought back then, for sure.
Oh, totally. And then like said it out loud and didn't get in trouble.
No, right. Yeah.
Like you can't do that these days. But also my sister is like 3 years younger than I am, and she was classified and had some things going on. So it's like I just made that cutoff before they started like piecing things together, where they were like, oh, maybe this one needs a little help. Don't know, Oh,
well, we failed Julie. Next.
Right. Let your sister go through, but you were going to give extra help too. Yeah.
Okay. So
it wasn't until, just to go back to the original question, so around 25, my anxiety started because I had my own apartment, and then really ADD at that point is more like you have the money, but you don't pay the bill, right? You have the video, old school, to return to Blockbuster, and it sits there, but it doesn't get to Blockbuster. I'm like banned from libraries and Blockbusters, like all over the place, because they're like, this chick does not bring stuff back, that type of thing. And when I went in there with the anxiety to a psychiatrist, he was like, hold on, before we talk about the anxiety, he's like, just the way you talk, like, have you ever been diagnosed with ADD, not ADHD? I'm like, no. So I took the, test or whatever. And that was the first that was my first experience with
the
that.
way you talk, just meaning
In
rapidly
like circles.
jumping around.
Yeah, rapidly jumping around. My husband's like, what are you even trying to talk about right now? I'm like, I don't know. Just follow along. It will come to a point at some point.
What about keywording? Do you do that? Can you be talking about the Atlantic Ocean and at some point during it, someone says blue and then we're talking about the color of your bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I do that. And I also just do it to myself. I also do it when I'm having I'll start talking about that and then I'll say a word and that will trigger a different thought. And then I will go in a different direction. I can do it all by myself.
You don't need the rest of us to get out of your thought to another thought.
No. And then when I get really real chatty and I'm in a conversation, it's almost like the person, I think of it as like, maybe you might have said this, but I don't know if it was you, but it was somebody, but it was very clever. But like, it's like a tennis serve. It's like, they're only talking to like, serve me a ball. You know what I mean? Like they're saying something. I'm like, oh, there it is. I got something to say.
Yeah. I can do this with my sister-in-law. I can just throw out a couple of words and then just watch her go. It's like winding up a toy and then watching it walk into walls. Did that just make me sound cruel, Julie, by any chance? Did it?
No, it's like funny. It's like funny, but not funny. Do you know what I mean? Like it is funny.
So now the funny thing when I'm using my sister-in-law as an example is I do believe she knows she's doing it. She just sort of can't stop herself. Does that make,
yes.
Do you feel that like while you're doing it, or are you like, Julie, in your mind, are you thinking like stay on topic or you're not making sense or stop jumping around or is it in the moment not aware to you?
You know what? I'm not aware, I would say, in the moment, but I also, not to brag, but I find myself kind of funny. So like people are going along with me, like they're laughing. It's not like I can read body language. Like if I need to shut up, like I will. So you know what I mean?
So you're saying that you think people are laughing with you, not at you. And so
oh my God, yeah.
You're entertaining on top of all that.
I think so.
You believe so. Has anyone ever paid you to be entertaining?
So. They do. I have never gotten cash for that.
Well, until somebody pays you, I don't know if I can trust your assessment. But I hear what you're saying, and I understand where we're going with this. I'm asking you because I'm also stopping myself from just throwing you up into the air like a sparkler and watching it pop all over the place. Because I feel like we'd have such a good time, and yet the episode would go nowhere. So I'm trying to stay focused.
Oh my God, it would go nowhere.
Don't worry, eventually
you can just throw it up at the end and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll just light it all on fire and see what comes of it. My real question around, and I appreciate you explaining all of that and allowing us to make light of it, because it does seem kind of burdensome and serious. How does the ADHD? First of all, what the hell's the difference between ADHD and ADD? I'll Google.
No, you don't have to. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that's more commonly seen in boys, but not always. It's like a combined type sometimes. I don't have the hyperactivity, although I tend to differ because you could call hyperactivity in a verbal way, which is also how my son is. So maybe it is ADHD, it's the hyperactive part. You know how some people with ADHD, especially as children, they're up, they got to get out of the seat. They're all over the place. They're very, very impulsive, that kind of stuff. So at 25, that's not what the doctor was diagnosing me with.
If I were to tell you right now that you didn't answer the question, do you know that? Do you remember what the question was?
Yeah, what's the difference between ADD and ADHD? It's hyperactivity.
And so you started when you started to define them, you then related the one to it's more often in boys, but then you were like, but not really. And then somehow you got back to yourself. I think you thought about girls and then you came back to yourself, and then you talked about the hyper part again, and then you related it to your son. But in no way
I just talk right out of my brain, and it does not ever really. Yeah, exactly. My husband's advice this morning, he goes, stick to the point and then zip it up and let him talk. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen.
I don't care. But let's try it again as a focused thing. Tell me what ADD stands for.
Attention deficit disorder.
Okay. More broadly, what does that mean?
difficulty attending to probably specific details in your life or the way that you may learn or focus, like saying like reading, or also sometimes hyper focusing. It's a deficit in attention.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I have to clear my throat,
okay.
or this is never going to go well.
Okay. And I'm just making up this definition.
If this tea was any hotter, and it's still not, if you hear me yell "ow" at any point, it's from the tea that I'm trying to clear my throat with. Webster's, right? A reasonable organization that defines things. A developmental disorder that is marked especially by persistent symptoms of inattention, such as distractibility, forgetfulness, disorganization, or by symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity, such as fidgeting, speaking out of turn, or restlessness, or by symptoms of all three that is not caused by any serious underlying physical or mental disorder. Does this define you or no?
Oh, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, let's try to figure out what ADHD means.
Okay.
Do you feel like you know what it is, or do you want me to check?
I just think that there's more of an emphasis on the hyperactivity part. I don't know exactly how they define that. It could be like physically, like getting up. Like I've seen some children that I've worked with that are very hyperactive. But no.
Psychiatry.org says attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is one of the most common mental disorders affecting children. ADHD also affects many adults. Symptoms of ADHD include inattentive, not being able to keep focused, hyperactivity, excessive movement that is not fitting the setting, and impulsivity, hasty acts that occur in the moment without thought. An estimated 8.4% of children and 2.5% of adults have ADHD. Well, that's an interesting thing, because if it starts out...
That's a little bit not like how I would be. Okay. I'm not as impulsive or the movement thing or any of that.
Okay. It's more in your mind. Now,
yes.
In the last 3 minutes where we've been focused and serious, has it changed how you feel?
No.
No. Okay, because your voice got very serious. Is that your...
Well, I'm just trying to focus.
You're trying to focus. Okay, good. No, I appreciate you explaining all this. Thank you. All right. So then the anxiety comes from what? Do you know?
Failure.
How so?
You mean well. You can be perfectly bright, extremely creative, but in a school environment, if you do not know that you have ADHD or ADD, you're going to fail in one way or another. You're going to be embarrassed, probably publicly, I would assume. You can have the best intentions and you can really think you're doing well. And then all of a sudden they're like, cool, you did your report. And then you go in your backpack and you're like, yeah, I sure did leave that at home. You've done, and you're just embarrassed. And it causes just such great, I used to think I had social anxiety. It turns out that's not really the case. I really just believe that it's caused by just repetitive failure without knowing why.
I see. Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle and is a premixed autoinjector of glucagon for treatment of very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes ages 2 and above. Find out more. Go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. In the morning, I get up, I get out of bed, I drag a comb across my head, and then I take AG1 from Athletic Greens. All I do is take the canister that it comes in, and I take out a scoop, I put it in the little shaky container that I drink it from, put the water in, shake, shake, shake. Actually, it dissolves very easily. And then, boom, I drink it. That's it. Goes down super smooth, no weird tastes, flavors, or aftertastes, and I'm on my way. AG1 is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty and no nasty chemicals or artificial anything. It supports better sleep quality and recovery. And when you go to my link, athleticgreens.com/juicebox, your subscription comes with a year's supply of vitamin D, which of course is so important to add, especially in these winter months when we're not getting so much sunlight. Recommended by professional athletes, you are investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. That's how I think of it, because I don't eat great all the time. But I look to AG1 to kind of make up the difference between what I eat and what I should have. athleticgreens.com/juicebox. Don't forget, when you use my link, you'll get a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/juicebox. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Links in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening in now, and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to my AG1 link. Or you just type it in your browser, athleticgreens.com/juicebox. You know, I have a little time here, so let me remind you to go to touchedbytype1.org. Great diabetes organization doing wonderful things for children and adults with type 1 diabetes. Don't miss their programs like the D-Box program, where you can reach out to them and say, hey, look, I've just been diagnosed. Can you send me out a box of goodies? And they will. They have golf outings. Their Dancing for Diabetes show just happened. I'm sure there are videos running right now on touchedbytype1.org if you'd like to go watch the entire show for free. They have the dance program, their bowling campaign. They do all this great awareness stuff. Go check them out or find them on Facebook and Instagram. touchedbytype1.org. It's actually interesting because I found myself the other day telling someone that I think that a lot of the pressure that comes from diabetes is because you don't know why things are happening. And so you're trying really hard and you're not getting anywhere close to the result you're looking for. And there's just such pressure from knowing that you've put so much effort into something and yet it's paying off not at all. And then of course with diabetes, it has health implications. And with you, it has personal growth implications. Is that right?
Yes.
You can't succeed, get a job. People don't take you seriously, I would imagine.
I have always been able to get a job. I'm very personable. My jobs have been, let's say they've kind of fallen into my lap. And I actually started working with kids with autism. That was basically handed to me. I didn't even graduate college. And they're like, it doesn't matter because 4-year college students come in here and they've never sat with a child with autism and they just absolutely don't understand the positive reinforcement, the whole thing. So they're like, we'll train you. I ended up being very, very good at that. I'm very good with teaching children how to settle down. I think because probably I've experienced a lot of some of these things, or how to be social, make eye contact and XYZ. So I also then ditched that whole thing, and then I became an art teacher. I was doing like clay and pottery and teaching adults and children painting and glazing and whatnot.
What made you?
I'm like an artist.
I'm going to ask you what made you make that switch in a second, but first let me just cover for you a little bit. Do you want to look for another adjective other than ditched, referring to the autistic kids? that was a tough one, Julie.
Oh my God, delete that. I love children with autism with all my heart. I just meant like I fell out of it. I fell out of the I don't recall why. I was doing it privately, and the child I was shadowing him and mainstreaming him into a private school, and I think it became too costly for them. They wanted to go back to public, where of course you can get your services for, that's included. And I kind of was, so I was working at this school, this private school, but just for this one family. And then when he went back to his district, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to find a new case. It's fine. It's always word of mouth. That's how I got tons of clients. And then the school called one day and they're like, we know you're not working at the moment. Do you want to be a sub for the Montessori class? Because I also went to Montessori education for a little bit of time. And I said, sure, I'll come in. I came in, and then the woman was like, oh my God, the other teacher quit. Would you please work here part-time? And I'm like, well, fine, but I can't be here at 8:30. I'll come at 9. And then, so I started doing that, and I was there for 5 years being a Montessori teacher.
What did the kids do between 8:30 and 9 while they were waiting for you?
Oh, no, there was 3 of us. We had 30 kids.
Oh,
so the main teacher and then the other teacher were there. Because I had to drop my daughter off at that time.
Do you have any feeling for what your coworkers, how they see you? Have they ever told you, or is it?
Yeah, they're both in a new school right now. Mm-hmm. They just have really they're like, it's not the same without you here. Like
positive experience.
Positive, all very positive. Even when I would shadow in, I worked in a Catholic school for 3 years. Those teachers were so nervous to have me in their classroom. I'm like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm helping my student. That's all I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the year, they're like, I don't know why teachers don't get someone like you in their classrooms all the time. Like, I don't want to go into next year without having you in my class. I have very, very, very good relationships with everybody that I've worked with.
Right. Okay. Well, that's amazing. But you did not finish college. Is that right?
I didn't finish any of them.
Any of them? What does that mean? Hold on. Wait, you graduated from high school, mm-hmm. But you believe they passed you through because they were like, oh, get this girl out of here. Right?
Let's just put it this way. I know I didn't pass that last test. So
Gotcha.
I mean, they can say what they want, but there's just no way.
Yeah. Okay.
That was history. You know what I'm saying?
And then did you try college?
Oh, yes. So for years, people were like, oh, you should be a model. And I'm like, cool. That's a nice compliment, whatever. And then when it came to graduating, I was like, maybe I will try that. So, because I don't feel like going back to school yet. So I went to the city, got on with an agency, did that for like a year. It was a disaster because you have to have a certain personality, which is called like self-confidence. And I have the opposite of that. So that didn't work out. So then I went to, where did I go next? Then I went to a community college around me. And I was going for early childhood education and child psychology, which is really, if I thought I wasn't just dumb, that's what I would have wanted to be, maybe a social worker or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I did that for like a year, and I'm like, I can't do this. It's all the same thing because I hadn't been diagnosed yet, and I just still didn't have any of the skills, honestly.
Right. I wondered this whole time how you got somebody to marry you, and then you low key like dropped in. I thought about modeling, and I was like, I see what's happening now. Okay, I gotcha. Is this what you did, Julie?
Please.
Yeah.
I'm no prize, but I had the looks going for me back in the day.
I'm no prize. I'm sure that's not true.
No, really.
Okay.
But organization of the home. Let's just start there. That doesn't happen. But anyway. So then I I was like, you know what, I'm an artist. But I want to make money. So I'm going to go I went to Parsons School of Design for graphic design and advertising. Mm-hmm. Don't know why I came up with that, but I stayed there for like, let's say 1 semester, and then I was like, you know what, the problem with this is I hate computers and technology. So I got to get out of here. Plus I had to drive to the city and I would get very anxious if I was late. And then I would just leave if I was even 1 minute late for the class.
Is Parsons the one in Manhattan or the one in Brooklyn?
Manhattan.
Okay. All right. The new school. Is that right? Part of that? It's part of the new school? Okay.
It's part of that. Yeah.
Okay. You stayed there how long?
1 semester. Like I loved the color theory. I loved the painting part, but
you didn't like using the computers and you were there for graphic design.
No. And I was literally there for that. Because I was too scared. I'm like, how do you turn it on? Like, who could ask that? Why am I here?
So, like, if you decided,
I don't know how to use it.
Like, if you said to yourself one day, I'm going to go to school to be a pigeon trainer, then you got there and said, the only real problem with this is these freaking pigeons.
Right. Yeah. Or like, I'm deathly allergic to pigeons or something like that.
I don't know what made me do this. So you
yeah, were not I love the training part, but does it have to be pigeons?
So prior to that decision, you were not aware that you were not computer oriented?
I don't think I thought about that.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. I'm not judging you, by the way. These are interesting little tidbits that build the story for us.
Totally.
Okay. So I think we're not going to say it, but we figured out how you got this, you know what I mean? Like, you're not taking the house isn't even clean. Is that what you're saying, Julie?
Actually, it was clean, but yes, it's clean. It's just I needed to do a lot of spring cleaning. I've done a lot since I started the medication, which is the reason that I think I'm even on here right now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just more of an organizational, like a system. You know, people need systems of doing things.
It helps you get there. So at what point do you realize I need some medication for this? When does that start?
That started after George was diagnosed. I was rocking it, but I started to see where you could lose control, you know, like, you know, some of the hormonal stuff, the middle of the night stuff that they weren't really teaching me. And I saw many people always talked about the Juicebox podcast on all the groups, but of course, God forbid I could like look that up on my own. But then one day somebody put it with the clip where you could just click on it and listen. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I heard that episode, I do not recall which one it was. I just put it down. I called a psychiatrist. It took like 2 weeks to get in. I said, I need to be put on medication because I have 525 hours worth of something that I'm going to listen to every word and learn every single bit of, but I'm going to need medication to do it. And so that is what I did. I got on medication so that I could listen to your podcast.
Julia,
and absorb it.
I can't tell you, and I hope you can shut up long enough for me to say this, but you almost made me cry. You took me by surprise. I'm misty, as they say. So let's unpack this for a second, because it feels like I'm going to be a hero at the end of this story. So I want to take a second with it. So first of all, you're not living with meds from the time you're born, even through the real problems that start around in your mid-20s, up till 44, just not. And then
not 44. Yeah, like 40. I started I think it was last June that I started listening to your podcast. Maybe it was before that. I'll never know.
So 45, are you breaking my balls over 1 year here, Julie? Is this what's going on right now?
2 years.
2 years.
Oh, yeah, 45. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead. I'll shut up. You work it out.
No, it's all right. It doesn't really matter. No. So when I was 25 and I was diagnosed, I was in the middle of like a complete breakdown. And hearing about the ADD and stuff, they did start me on medication, but like I didn't stick with it because it had a lot of side effects. I didn't really know what was going on. And honestly, the job I had at that time, which was, I believe, like the pottery place and teaching the art and stuff, I was like, oh my God, like nobody needs to focus this much. Like I've already made a life that doesn't need focus. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It just felt like a bit much. And I just never, I did it for like a few weeks. I'm like, it's not for me. And that was it.
All right.
Not until the podcast part.
You are taxing my ability to focus, but I appreciate it. It's making me better today, because the really interesting thing that just happened is that I wanted to move to, I was trying to move to an idea, and I was just giving timeline context, saying that you hadn't had meds your entire life right up until George was diagnosed. I took the fact that it looks like he's had diabetes since he was 11, but he's 14 now. And then I subtracted 3 from your age. And then you got super focused on a completely unimportant part of what I was saying. And then we literally jumped off on a tangent. That's like, I know. I have not finished my thought yet. It's really like, no, don't be sorry. I'm endlessly fascinated by this. You should not be sorry. You're doing an amazing job of letting people see what this is. So, but I'm being serious. So, so my point is that at that point, your son becomes diagnosed with type 1. This thing is difficult. It takes focus. You clearly have set up a whole life for yourself where you don't have to focus, which was probably a brilliant strategy for self-preservation. And then you get into a situation where you care more about George and his health than you do about your comfort, but realize there's no way you can help him while you're in this situation. And so when you listen to the podcast, It isn't that you heard an episode where somebody was like, I have ADHD and medication helped me. You heard,
Oh no, it had nothing to do with that.
right. You heard this
Yeah.
might help my son, but I don't have the capacity to listen to it.
I heard it and I said, crap, all the answers are here. I can tell. And look at how many episodes. It's like going to college.
Yeah.
Okay. And you saw how that went. So no, yeah, I was like, nope.
So
nope.
you had,
I need medication.
wow.
And I need it to work and I need it to be good.
So Julie, you ended up in a different way than has ever been described to me in the past, doing what I see so many people doing over and over again, which is they don't help themselves until helping themselves helps a loved one. Fantastic. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I also was kind of spinning at that time because if you think about everything other than management of diabetes, which I was actually doing quite well at, if you think about everything else, it's all my worst things. Like I do not make phone calls. I cannot make a freaking appointment to save my life. I let every medication run out for like at least a week before I get it. I mean, you can't do that with diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
I've got like 3 different pharmacies. I thank my people, and I always have from the beginning. Omnipod, the people that fill that for me, right?
Yeah.
They call me. It's time. Do you want us to deliver? Yes. Thank you. And thank you always for calling me and doing this for me. And I say the same thing to the Dexcom rep.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
Because it's they probably have
there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah,
There's
they
just
probably
no,
have a
there
note in
wouldn't
there.
have been.
Yeah, that says Julie's never calling us. We need to call her.
Yeah, and I think that's just what they do because they just to get the approval of the copay or
Sure.
just to let you know that they're sending it out. But I go above and beyond.
Yeah, because
super nice.
because you're super nice. Is that why?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. That was not in question ever, Julie. We never thought you weren't super nice.
No.
Okay, so how long do you have to be with the psychiatrist? Like, are you seeing the psychiatrist just to get the script, or are you actually do you actually start talking to them?
Well, a psychiatrist, you don't really. I mean, I spoke with him. You have to speak with them to get the medication. I also, in addition, started seeing a therapist.
Okay.
So that's different. They don't prescribe medication. That's more of a talk therapy type of situation.
Yeah. And the therapy was about George's diagnosis or about yourself, or what ended up happening there?
No, it was about me, but then it was about George. And then we just started becoming like friends. So then she was like, should we like do this like once a month instead? So I'm like, yeah, sure. And then it just stopped.
It stopped. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Jesus. Did this person have a degree of any kind, or was this?
Yeah. She's a psychologist.
All right. I don't know. I got to be honest with you, Julie. There are days when I think I'm like 4 classes away from being a psychologist. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. But you know what? The funny thing is.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm like, I tell my friend, I'm like, if I had, first of all, podcasts, never heard of them, never did a book on tape, never did anything like that. I'm like, do you understand? I probably could have graduated college if it was all on a podcast.
Really?
And I could like do laundry and like walk around or keep my physical body, doing one thing so I could really focus.
Okay. So this format works for you because you can busy yourself and hear it at the same time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't have to. It's not like I'm not like, oh, okay, like I'm going to listen. Let me go, like, I don't know, move my body. It's just, I like to multitask,
Yeah.
I sitting down to read is, first of all, I can't read. I was in the hospital. I read that, I don't know, one of those things, Think Like a Pancreas, which is obviously great, I'm sure. I read the whole thing. I don't know what happened there,
Wait a minute.
at all.
You
like,
just said,
at all.
I'm sure Think Like a Pancreas is great. I'm sure, meaning I read it, but I don't remember reading it. Like you didn't.
I remember reading it and being like, I don't know. Right now, I'm just trying to think about why when somebody is low, they don't need insulin.
Okay.
Like I just couldn't, in the very beginning, I was like, wait, so when he's low, he needs insulin. They're like, oh my God, no, they need the sugar when they're low.
Right.
They need the insulin for the blood sugar.
15 years in, my mother-in-law brings Arden food when her blood sugar's high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't even know what to tell you about that.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated that the format works so well for you, because I believe very strongly that I wasn't doing much different when I was writing a blog than I'm doing now. And yet it just never reached people in the way that this does. And it helped people, but very specific people. And and now I hear from so many listeners, and their backgrounds and their learning styles and their education levels are all so incredibly varied, and yet they almost all take the exact same thing away from the podcast.
Yeah,
It
it's
really
amazing.
It's crazy. I was telling someone the other day, I was standing at a baseball game at my son's college, and a pitcher's father comes up to me, and we hadn't met before, and we're talking, and he's telling me what he does for a living. And then he asks me what I do. And then there's this moment where I'm 50 years old. I'm clearly, my son's in college. I must be paying for it somehow, right?
Right.
And I'm now going to tell another human being, another adult, that I'm a podcaster. And it's weird to say out loud. And so I end up explaining it first, before I even say the words. And then I kind of got over that part, and then explained to him how it helps people and how I'm really feel blessed. And it's not a word I use lightly, because I have no real religious background or affiliation, but I really do feel blessed that I do something that pays my bills, that I enjoy, and that helps people. Mm-hmm. It's a trifecta of things I could not have imagined for myself, or I think most people are hard pressed to get those three things in their work life. But then,
and don't you feel like it's your personality and the way that you think that got you here?
Well, I'm probably the worst person to ask why the podcast works, because I'm certain that it works because of me, but I'm just being myself. So it's not like I sat down, when you see people now and that you can see them plotting out their social media ideas about how they're going to dominate the world and be like, click mavens and win everything. And I didn't start this podcast for it to be popular. I started it because I wanted to expand on what I was doing, and I knew that the blog helped people. I didn't want to lose the ability to help people, and people weren't reading anymore. So this was just the thing I did next to try to keep this train rolling, basically.
You were going with the times. It was kind of probably like the blog was getting a little less popular and podcasts were maybe getting more popular. And so you're like, let me transfer over to there.
I didn't even know. Here's what I knew for sure.
Maybe.
People read less than they used to. And I like listening to audio. I like to listen to people speak. So I would prefer to be in the car listening to someone speak than someone sing. When I'm walking around the house, I'd prefer to hear somebody talking than not. I like hearing new things and ideas and things like that. And I don't know that, I could go listen to a 3-hour podcast by somebody else, and I don't know that when it's over, you could give me a test on it, but I do feel enriched when it's over, and I do remember the things that I need to remember from it. And so I thought, like, maybe this would work for that. But the thing I didn't finish saying was that the gentleman at the baseball field, what I told him was, it's so incredible to touch this many people's lives with technology that did not exist when I was in high school. And I mean all of it. I mean the computers, the internet access, the bandwidth that's available, cell phones, headphones that, pair easily and people can pop in and out when they're jumping out of their car and things like that. Like everything that makes podcasts accessible, like literally didn't exist when I was thinking to myself, I wonder what I'll do with my life. And and he asked me, what did you do back then? And I said, I worked in a sheet metal shop.
Right.
It's so crazy. I mean, I was the entertaining person at the sheet metal shop, but a lot of good that was ever going to do me. You know what I mean? So,
and did you ever have like a 9-to-5 or a desk job or any of that kind of stuff?
I graduated from high school, and the next day I started working in my uncle's sheet metal shop. I did that. Okay. I did that for a number of years until one day, oh my God, am I going to tell this story? Let's do it.
Sure.
Until one day there was a guy that worked in the shop who was my least favorite person. It was just sort of pompous and hard on people. I'm sure he grew up poorly, and there would have been a way for him to, anyway, I'm sure there's a reason why, but he was a jerk, and it was the early 90s. And and he would go home every day, and his wife would make him lunch. And there was something about that I found distasteful for some reason. I can't even begin to tell you why. Just that she had a job too, but that she'd run home to make him lunch. It just always, it always seemed strange to me. And
that would definitely rub me the wrong way.
And I hung a sign on his back as he left that said his wife's name, comma, and it said, "Hold the dog, I'm horny." And I don't know why I did that. And I was fired the very next day.
Oh my God.
Rightfully so. I bounced.
They could have given you one chance.
Well, I don't know.
They didn't think it was a little bit funny.
I'm sure everyone thought it was funny, but I don't think he thought it was funny, and they were, defending him,
right.
Which makes sense to me. Even at that point,
it makes sense.
I have to tell you, I was standing at the time clock at 6 o'clock in the morning, punching in, and they grabbed me, pulled me in the office, fired me, and I thought, that's fair, and I left. I didn't even argue.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't even argue. Yeah. I was like, okay.
And also, you're like, I don't have to work today. Like, what should I do?
And I don't understand why at 23 I thought that that humor was funny, but I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, so I don't know what I went from there. I went and worked for a landscaper for a while. I worked at a 7-Eleven for 6 or 8 months. I did all kinds of little weird things like that. And then one day my uncle called me back, and they had trouble filling my position. And he brought me back. Like a couple years later, I worked there for a while again.
Did you have to sign like an agreement, like you're not going to do the back sticker thing anymore or anything like that?
No, but that guy was still there.
Oh, he was.
I don't know. We didn't really ever get along real great, but that's not the point. So from there, I think I finally realized that I needed to do something else. And a friend of mine, Julie, she was working at a credit card company collecting debts. And she's like, "You can talk really well. You could do this." And so I started collecting credit card debts, and it was great training for speaking to people without knowing anything about them. Because back then, what would happen? I'm calling this thing a computer, but if you could see it the way I see it in my mind, it's not the way you're imagining your computer right now.
I don't have a computer, but totally.
So I'd be on a headset, and a person's voice would just pop up in front of me. Somebody'd be like, "Hello," and as they were saying hello, and I was orienting myself on the call, their information had not yet popped up in front of me. So you had to kind of like engage them while the information was populating on the screen, and then get them to make a low-level credit card payment, which I was incredibly good at. I was so good at it that I think I moved on to a credit union where I did it there in a more private setting, which was excuse me, that was like boutique collections because these people had the money, they just wouldn't send it, And one day at that job, the this is so crazy, you're gonna laugh in a second. The graphic designer up and quit, and I hated collecting debts. It made me feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
So I ran downstairs in the building to the HR person. I said, I can do that. I can make your stuff. I can do the graphic design. And she said, "You went to school for that?" And I was like, "No, not at all." I said, "But just take me to the computer that the girl used. I can show you." And I sat down, knocked something out. And then I ran off and took a weekend long course on Photoshop and another Adobe product. I came back. I came back 3 days later. I started designing their stuff for them.
So you basically did the same thing I did, which is just went with the flow. Things came your way. You took the opportunity. You used your skills that you had, instead of any deficits that you may have. I'm sure we all have them. Yeah. And until it all like clicked together and became awesome. Right.
Yeah. I got pushed into it. Like you got pushed into it, I think, through your ADD. And I got pushed into it through my just very poor upbringing, and nobody ever thought to send me to college. And I was in a broke family, and that was it. I mean, if you want context, that first job in that sheet metal shop paid me $4.50 an hour. And I did more damage to my physical self in the 5 years that I was there than any money they gave me will ever make up for. But the point, good, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, so yeah, you didn't have the opportunity and nobody like was really pushing you to go to college. So you did well in school?
No,
Like you
horribly.
feel like with the opportunity, you had the opportunity to be in high school. Did you do well with like schoolwork and stuff
No,
like
no,
that?
not at
Like you
all.
think college would have gone well?
No, I can't imagine. I
Right.
I put no effort into high school whatsoever. Oh, and
Yeah, me either.
yeah, I don't know if this. I'm trying to. I feel like I told somebody this recently, but the first day of my senior year of high school, my English teacher said, "You're going to have to do a report. It's not due until the last week of the year." And I raised my hand and said, "I'm not going to be able to get that done."
The same thing.
And he's like, "You have a year," and I said, "I got a job, man. I can't do that."
Oh, so you had the real reason. Mine was like, you're going to have to do this and it's going to be an oral report. And then I waited till about a week before it was due. And I just said, listen,
Yeah.
I can give it to you written, but I'm not doing an oral report. And she's like, well, you'll have to take the 0. I'm like, I'll take the 0. That is so much better than getting up in front of this class.
I would, I'd get by in all kinds of weird ways. So there used to be a check system in my middle school where if you answered a question, the teacher could throw you a check and you could, kind of pile up the checks and trade them for grades. And every once in a while, a teacher would get like cocky and say something out loud. Like, I once passed a science class, an entire year of a science class, because one day, the science teacher said, "Hey, 100 checks," which was enough, like, to just buy your grades, to anybody who knows the name of the first Mickey Mouse movie. And my hand went right up, and I was like, "Steamboat Willie," and I thought he was gonna say, "Oh." Like he was really like upset with himself that he put himself in that position. I walked up to his desk and watched him put every one of those 100 checks in there. And I said, "Thank you. I'm going to be using all of them." And he goes, "Okay." And he walked away. And I passed an entire year of science off of that one moment. So
it's beautiful. They should bring back that system.
Oh, it was great. We had the follow maybe 2 years later. It's so funny that I said just now, because the teacher said anybody who can come up in front of the class and speak for, I forget how long it was, 2 or 3 minutes, about anything without saying gets 300 checks.
Oh boy.
It was the easiest thing I ever did in my life. I watched people get up there. I'll never forget this one person, this girl. She stands up there and the teacher goes, "Go ahead and start." And the girl goes, And so they're doing it over and over again. And I got up there and I spoke for 2 or 3 minutes straight and made sense and never said And the woman gave me the 300 checks, and then I didn't do another thing in her class again that year. So every time I failed a test or didn't turn in a homework, I would just trade it for the checks, and I just kept working off them that way.
You're like, take it out of my credit.
Take it out of credit, baby. I'm all good. Scotty don't need to do this. When kids were running around in high school, I have to take the SAT. So I went to work the day. I actually looked at I thought, I should probably take the SAT. And then I looked and I was like, well, I work then. And I just didn't do it. So I didn't go to college. I would have been terrible in college. Really.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
I was.
No, that's it. I don't think I have ADHD or ADD. I just was a bad student. Nobody was pushing me from home to do better. The expectation.
No, you're like very smart and you just have a certain personality.
Yeah, the expectation was you'd go to work. We were all really blue collar, and that was the idea. So I didn't need to go to college to work in my uncle's sheet metal shop. And I had no expectations of a better life, like whatsoever.
Right.
Now, the only thing that saved me, honestly, it's that my wife was able to see through my circumstances and see me when we were dating.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd live a blue collar lifestyle right now. It wouldn't be anything wrong with it. But it was just that one person who, like a college person who had bigger hopes for themselves and more desire, and somebody behind them telling them you're going to college, like that kind of thing. It's just that she saw me for who I was and not and not the life I was leading, I guess. That's it. I don't know how we got here, Julie.
Sorry.
It's 20
I'm
minutes.
always going to apologize. It's me.
Don't be sorry. 20 minutes
I
later,
brought you here.
I want to ask you about, so you're, oh my God, I can't believe we're this far away from it. Your son's diagnosed and you go to the psychiatrist, you get the medication, you start listening to the podcast. Like, what do you figure out for yourself then?
As far as diabetes?
Yeah. How did you get, like, cause you're doing, like, he's doing well. Am I right?
We were doing great. I am not in the same position that I was 6 months ago when I booked this. But,
okay. Well, tell me about it then. What did you learn? Where did it take you and what's happened since?
Okay. Well, I learned we were doing very well. We did very well MDI. You know, he was diagnosed, he was like 14.3. And then by the next, it wasn't 3 months, it was 4 months actually, appointment, he was 5.6. And we've kind of rocked between 5.6 and 6.1 all this way until our last A1C. Mm-hmm. But I learned a lot of what I thought must be the case, which is this thing where I send my numbers to them and they're going to make adjustments. Like, I'm going to have to surpass this. This is not like how it's going to be, you know, like I'm going to need to understand and being like the bold with insulin and like, you know, it doesn't always matter why, you just need more insulin and just hearing everybody's stories and every single thing to be learned. I learned from it, from the podcast, you know, but now George is, the teen year, right? It hit him hard about like 3 years ago. I know 3 months ago. And we both kind of were suffering a little bit of burnout. We're both kind of like, whatever. And I mean, I'm just like, wow, it's like I learned all of that stuff. And I didn't realize how much his compliance really helped. And so right now we're in a situation where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I know how to do this. I've never, ever wanted to do low carb or any of that. I just wanted him to just eat regularly. And that was another thing, learning to know that you didn't have to change your diet. It was like, oh, thank God, okay. You know, like this is amazing. And just listening to all of that, all the pro tips and everything was just so great. And we did. I mean, it's not. I mean, he had a 5.8, and he had Burger King. I mean, he did. He had it like once every other week, or you know. I mean, he has pizza lunch at school. You know, he was the master at pizza lunch. 2 slices and a big, huge deli chocolate chip cookie. Didn't go over 140. Beautiful. We had it all. Everything was going well. And then, you know, now we're having a little bit more of a battle of wills, if you will. There's like some sneaking of food, which is not sneaking, but I'm like, just take the insulin, you know, and he wants independence. And so we're just in like a hard place right now.
Yeah. So he got a little older, a little more testosterone. That's all happening. And now he isn't as good about pre-bolusing or listening when you text him or something to that effect.
Yeah. And he's like, you know, there's some lying. And I'm like, dude, please, like, I don't have the time. I don't care what you ate. You think I care what you ate? I don't, you know, but like, I have to know why you're 300 at 4 a.m. Like, just be honest, because then I know how to treat it. Like, am I readjusting? Is this like an every night thing? Like, are you eating after I go to bed? You know, because now it's like he's on spring break and, you know, it's just kind of stuff like that. And he's like I'll text him. I'm like, what's with this number? Like, are you, you know, like, can we take care of this? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, you don't know? Like, I think you know.
Oh, it's just a stone wall. It's not even like, hey, I ate something, but I didn't bolus for it.
No, we'll get there after like a 20-minute conversation. But I mean, he knows the deal. Like, he knows. I'm like, I said, I didn't set this, like, learn all of this so that you could have freedom. You know what I mean? We have always pre-bolused. It doesn't mean like when I step foot out of the house to run to the store, you don't have to pre-bolus.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that kind of stuff. And I feel bad because I don't want to be mad. Like, he's the one that lives with this. This is his diabetes. You know what I'm saying? And so all I can do is teach him what I know and try to be patient. But it's really hard to be really patient when you know that there are long-term effects. I mean, I'm going to tell you honestly, 3 months ago, his A1C was 5.8.
Mm-hmm.
We went last week, 7.1.
Wow. Yeah, that's a significant change. That's a clear indication that he's just not doing the basic things that keep his A1C down. That must have been
I even got to the point where I told a friend, I'm like, I don't think we're ever it's not gonna matter. I kind of got to a point where I felt almost like how you would know, Arden's not really gonna have like a 7 A1C. She's just not. You guys know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You get it. You give more when you need more. But if one of those people drops out of the race, and especially the diabetic one, it can get out of control. Like like I told my endo the other day, I'm like, if it was my diabetes, it would be different, but it's his, and I know things can go up and down, and I don't want to look down on it, but it's just.
Does your husband get involved in this at all?
No,
because it occurs to me, and I could be 100% wrong, Julie, but mm-hmm. you're scattered like at times, like even through conversations and everything. So I wonder if a different voice that comes at him a different way might not help snap him back to where he needs to be.
You know what? Like when my husband does say something, like what I meant is he doesn't do management. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, the man does not even know how to use the pump. He has to wake me up if he's high and I don't hear the alarm. Mm-hmm. And so, which is fine. I've come to terms with that. It is better if one person is really managing it. But when he says to George, so his thing is like, well, why is he even eating carbs in the first place? I'm like, oh my God, like, what are you talking about? And then my son, so he'll say to George, he's like, it's unacceptable. It's long-term health, blah, 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 blah. And George looks at him and goes, you don't get it with the diabetes, Dad. Only mom does. That's not how we do it. And I'm like, well,
so okay, I wasn't thinking so much about your husband coming in with diabetes advice. I was thinking your husband coming in like it was 1982 and saying, listen to me, I'm going to tell you something right now. It's the only thing that's important. Listen to your mom. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he'll say that.
Like, I know it's a sexist older idea, but I don't.
Listen, I use it to my son. I said, that's it. That's it. Yeah. I'm giving Dad the reins for a week. And he's like, don't even. I'm like, I will.
Yeah, again, not about the diabetes, just the like, hey, even if it's just a more pleasant conversation where you say, look, you know, I need you to be respectful of your mother. I don't care if you don't want to do this. It's not, that doesn't matter to me. You're going to do it. Yeah. And when she talks to you, we're going to respond. We're not going to drag out conversations and jerk her around and make her feel she's spinning her wheels. You know, this is the least you can do for her, is be respectful of her. It's got nothing to do with diabetes, really. It has to, I mean, just do with like the communication that the two of you have back and forth. Like, I get that the kid's trying to find his way and he's probably trying to separate you from him a little bit and that's fine. Like you said, but then do it. Like, don't tell me you want control and then get control and what you do with the control is nothing. You know what I mean? Like if you want to be in charge and do it. And if you can't, then right on, then I'd be happy to continue to help you. But there's no world where we're going to let your A1C jump up 2 points in 3 months.
Well, these are the conversations I have with him. My husband has had conversations with him. Yes, more about just listening to me and trying to work with me because we have a good system, you know?
Yeah, it's obviously working.
It's just that he's not doing it. So anyway, I just recently reached out. I got to get him like a therapist because he has had a lot. He's like, I'm very overwhelmed. You know, he's 13, but the kid's like 6'1". He's just a little.
Does he have any of the anxiety?
Heartbreaker, you know? Yeah, he's had a couple panic attacks this year. He's had a couple situations. It's a lot, you know? It's a lot on him, which is why I say, I'm like, this is why I just text you at the time to bolus at school, not to annoy you, to take it off your, like the way I look at it is I'm trying to take it off your plate.
Give him a hand. Yeah. Right.
You know, for as long as I can. And I'm willing to do it. my alarm just went off at 11:30. It goes off. I usually text him what his, if I ordered lunch or whatever, your lunch is this, probably around this many carbs, whatever. Don't forget to pre-bolus.
Mm-hmm.
Then he won't answer. And then I emphasize it.
Right.
It's like this whole thing, and I don't mind doing that. I know he's busy. He's like, I'm busy doing school. I'm like, I understand, but you don't have to go to the nurse. You don't have to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've taken away all of the things that we did when we first started, where you'd have to go to the nurse 20 minutes before, which means you miss part of your recess and this and that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, we've come so far, and now we're just dropping the ball all over the place. And it's like difficult. I'm just really hoping that we can like get past that part.
I have found all that's come up with Arden, and I've just found that perseverance eventually gets you to it. I've gone to, in the past, I've gone to say okay at the end of a text, meaning if you don't respond to me, I'm going to keep assuming you haven't seen this. So say okay.
That's exactly what I tell him. Right. I say, I will emphasize once, meaning like just hello, gives another vibration to the text. And then I'm like, if you're not going to respond, I'm going to call. If I call his phone, I have my phone number on override.
What does that mean?
It would just actually ring.
Okay. Yeah.
Even if he has it on silence, is my point. He can silence his phone, but he cannot silence my ring.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
You can do that. Yeah. You can go to emergency override under your name in their contacts.
Okay.
And I know someone taught me that. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I get him up in the morning. And he has the most annoying thing under my name. It's like, dun, da, 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 da. It's like so loud. He can't stand it.
So he knows to answer it very quickly. Yeah.
Well, no, he won't. But then I'm like, okay, calling in 5. And then I'll be like 4, 3. He's like, hey, so it's just like we're in that. It's like a teen thing. I just didn't think it was going to happen so drastically and so fast.
Oh, yeah. Boys are something, the way they shift.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my God. There's like a mustache involved. I don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exactly what's happening. Well, I wish you luck. That sounds terrible. So what do you think? What do you think the first steps are to bring the 7 back to the 5s?
Well, when he starts doing any of the things that we know how to do, that's going to be really helpful.
Okay.
Last night he was at a beautiful number. We had a huge feast my husband made homemade fajitas and everything was so good. Great bolus. Didn't really have a lot of rice, so there wasn't a really big situation going on. But I could hear him tiptoeing around at midnight. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do it. What are you going to do? And then I wake up and I even tell him, I'm like, if you're heading to the kitchen, please pre-bolus for whatever it is that you're having, please just do it. And I go to sleep because I need sleep at some point. And then the alarm's going off. I look, it's we're 3:25. I'm like, 3:25.
So you didn't bolus at all?
We never even ever. He didn't bolus. He didn't pre-bolus at all. And whatever he ate must have been sweet. I didn't fight it out with him this morning. I was too nervous. I didn't want to be like, what was it that you had?
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
But something that had the whole thing. Rocket fuel in it for his blood sugar.
Something was not good. Something involved. It wasn't cereal because I don't have any, but it was something along those lines. Maybe these muffins or something. I don't know. Just something where okay. And I've even explained to him, I said, George, I have learned even so much that if you really feel that you cannot pre-bolus, I will over-bolus you. There is a way. I don't want to get into a habit of it, but I will take into account what this is about to do to you, and we will put it all in there.
Yeah, or even just as you're walking downstairs, just choose 15 carbs and bolus for it until you figure. Because I think that's what happens is they don't know. They know they're going to eat. They don't know what they're going to eat. Right. And so
you can always bolus something.
Get some insulin going until you figure it out, then put the rest of it in. I mean, that's to me is that's common sense. And
that's what I say. A lot of it is. It's not. I do know it's a big drag because who the hell wants to have
well, you got to get past that part.
Deal with this.
Yeah,
but you have to get past that part.
Yeah. You have diabetes. Fighting that that's a different situation. You know what I mean? If you're fighting the idea that you have type 1, that's not the same as ignoring what you're supposed to do. Those are two different.
Yeah.
Those are two different issues.
Yeah, like a few months ago, he's in private school right now, Catholic school, and I'm not even Catholic, but whatever. And then but he's going back to public for high school. Okay, next year.
Okay.
And he literally says, he's like, it's going to be so great. He's like, I'm just like not even gonna, he's like, my whole school knows, his whole grade is like 40 kids. It's like nothing. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm not going to tell anybody I have diabetes. I'm like, oh, please listen to me. You have got to accept this thing because this is like crazy. That cannot be your plan. You know what I mean? Like, I think in his mind, I don't know. It's almost like a delayed denial thing, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe or something. I don't know. This is why I'm getting a therapist.
I just think that at 11, it's different than when you're 14. That's all. Your child when you're 11, and what happens. You just keep going and keep going. You don't have a ton of at least external feelings that start impacting stuff where you let your parents, the pressure of what your parents want, get you to do it. And then you just, at some point, you get a little testosterone and you're like, I'm going to push back. And this is what pushing back looks like.
Yeah. I told him he's got a couple of months with the pushback, but once the high school starts, like, no, we're going to really need to get back to what we're doing. I mean, we're already doing it, so I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to be like, this is fine. Yeah. But
I would just say, have to. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think the idea that a break from diabetes means a break in your health is a weird precedence to set. So,
oh no, I don't mean it like a break. That's why I said, no, I'm not going to just allow it. But I just meant like, you don't have much more, like, you don't want to go into high school having to like check in to the nurse. Like, I'm never going to let it go is my point. Right. So like, if you want to hash it out, we'll hash it out over the summer. I don't mean by like, I'm still going to be, having you bolus and asking you this and that and that. I'm just trying to be a fair, nice parent. It's like difficult.
It's a lot of work. It's not nearly as fun as you think it's going to be when you're like, oh, we'll have a baby. This will be fun. Yeah, not really. I mean, it's fun at the beginning when they're little. And
I was even okay with the diabetes. I was like doing all right. And then I think it's the teen thing that's hard.
Yeah.
He's a sweetheart too. So, and we're like buddies. He's a mama's boy. So I just think, I don't know why I was in denial. I didn't think that it was going to hit him I don't think he was going to be like this.
Well, if I can make one public service announcement, I'm going to tell any mom who's listening that your relationship with your son is going to change as they start to mature. So it takes a pretty big shift. And I mean, it looked shocking to my wife. And as I was trying to like kind of coach her through it and be like, hey, here's what you should be doing right here, because this is what he's thinking. She just kept seeing him like he was 8. And I'm like, that's not what you think is happening is not happening anymore.
Right.
Yeah. It's not difficult to understand boys, but it is difficult, I think, for moms to want to see their boys as men. That's tough.
Well, I'm trying to listen. He actually, I have to be honest with you, this kid shares a lot with me. Mm-hmm. Like he had a girlfriend and then like he went to the mall. And I think he's like, just before the questions start, I will just tell you, but don't tell anybody. I had a kiss, Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Okay.
That's
fine. He tells me the things.
Yeah. That's bragging. That's not sharing.
Oh, right. Yeah. That might have been bragging.
Like, remember earlier when you said, I tried modeling for a while, they call that a low key brag. So, you know what I mean?
It's a low key brag, but I'm aware of it. So
yeah, but he is too. I'm just telling you, it's going to get worse. Like boys aren't, I'm 50. My thoughts aren't much different now than they were when I was 14. So okay. Good luck.
It's good to know. So I don't know how long we're into this right now, but I wanted to say something that was really interesting. How everybody it's not interesting. It's interesting to me. How everybody has like, oh, their kid got sick or they think, the autoimmune is already there. He would have gotten it anyway, but George was on medication for ADHD for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I took him off June, end of 5th grade. Because you don't really eat, it suppresses your appetite a lot, the medication. Mm-hmm. So when I took him off, he started eating like a maniac, right? Like so much. It was unbelievable. and he started gaining weight and everything. And he was always really thin. Even my husband and I would be like, look at that stomach. It's getting a little pudgy, little, funny. He's really eating a lot. And then that was like a couple months. And then at the end of the summer, let's say it's late August, September, is when he started continuing the eating and then the drinking, right? And I really think that was like what his trigger. It's like, I really think it like triggered it. Like it was so much on his pancreas. Like he would have gotten it anyway, but like, how everybody gets it through this, or people say like, oh, I think it was this vaccine or this, and, or they got COVID or they got, he would have gotten it anyway. I just think that was like his trigger, was coming off of that and just eating like a maniac.
Julie, maniac. I'm going to tell you that I am not a doctor, nor am I a scientist, but that doesn't make any sense to me. But
you don't think?
I don't think at all. No,
you don't think just eating so much high carbs, so like no, well, so like I'm saying, he already was going to get it.
I hear what you're saying, but how would calling for more insulin trigger him into type 1? That doesn't make sense, because type 1's an autoimmune disease. So there's an autoimmune response in your body that kills the beta cells, blah, 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 et cetera, or, whatever words you want to use for what happens to the beta cells. But it's not an overuse situation where you're asking for too much insulin and suddenly you've taxed the pancreas. Those two things are not.
Like, you don't think it would speed it up if you were like eating like just like a maniac?
I think
it would not speed up a process that was already like maybe slowly coming into action.
I think if you made me bet $100 of my own money on what you just said, I would bet against what you said being true. But I don't know for sure. Okay. That's all. It just doesn't it doesn't shake out to me is all. I can see that it like cause and effect way. You might have seen it happen, and anecdotally it feels like that. But I mean, I don't know. Listen, I could also
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. That's all. So
I guess in my head, I'm thinking, all right, well, his body was probably already slowly maybe doing this, like, because who knows? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, but then I'm like, oh, and then I took him off that medication. Therefore, he's like eating like everything under the sun. So in my mind, I guess I was thinking like he was really taxing the pancreas that was already probably starting to struggle. But it could be wrong. Yeah. I mean, obviously, maybe that does not make any sense. I am not a doctor. No, clearly.
It just felt like you were mixing apples and oranges there, and that the apples were type 2 diabetes and the oranges were type 1 diabetes. That's all.
Right.
That's all. Hey, I think it's just interesting after everything we've talked about George and what is going on with him in the moment, and that he has ADHD. It's fascinating a little bit to hear you talk about yourself and have such clarity about why you can and can't do the things that you can and can't do. But when you talked about George, it feels like to you that he's just ignoring you.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of understanding when it comes to any of that stuff regarding school. I have a lot of meetings saying like, listen, he has an IEP, he has ADHD. That means, yes, he's going to, it's Catholic school. They're like crazy. It's like, oh, he keeps not having a pencil. I'm like, well, then just provide the pencil. Like, I don't care. He's never going to have a pencil, like that's how this is going to work. I just need him to learn. Like, we're not going to mark off for like an unkept like notebook.
Why is it
it's just going to be doodles?
Well, why is it different than when he forgets the bolus?
Well, I don't, because I'm almost feeling like he's not forgetting to bolus. I feel like he's not bolusing.
So you think that he?
I don't feel, because he's got like a little bit of a tude. He's like, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. I can't remember.
So
but like, it's not the same as when he's like
forgetting the pencil.
Oh, like there's been a couple times at school where I'm like, oh, buddy, did you forget to bolus? He's like, oh my God. He'll say like, oh, I didn't even bolus. I'm like, it's all right. Just bolus now. It's fine. No big deal. This is a little different.
Okay.
It feels a little more behavioral is the vibe.
Yeah. I mean, only you would know. I was just trying to, I was thinking through at the moment, because we are finishing up, and I was thinking through, if I was listening to this, what questions would I still have? And that was the one I had. So that's it, really. Did we not talk about anything that you wanted to talk about? You didn't have a list. All it said was don't curse, and you cursed twice. So other than that, we're all good.
Did I curse twice?
I believe so. Oh, wait, maybe that was me at 47:50. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
It might have been me that cursed once and you that cursed once. Not a big deal.
All right.
That's all. Is there
Yeah,
anything
that's
left?
about that.
Anything we should do?
No, that's it. I really appreciate the podcast and everything you do. And, I just hope it just continues and continues. I love everybody's stories. I hope this is even any remotely normal type of podcast. I'm not sure.
Are you kidding? I love that
I'm not kidding.
Every one
I'm
of these,
literally.
Jesus, Julie, every one of these recordings ends and people are like, I hope you use this. And I'm like, what delusion are you under that I record a bunch of podcasts that I don't use?
Well, I know I've heard you say you use them all unless someone were to be like, listen, you definitely can't do that.
Right. Yeah, there's been a couple. Right.
I just mean it's like I black out when I think back. I'm like, I don't recall what we just talked about, but that's okay. I'm
okay. Trust me. If I didn't like what you were saying, I would have redirected you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's all. I just, to me in this last hour, I don't know, like I'm like a lion tamer, like I've got the whip in the chair, and you're like a bumblebee on a leash, and I'm just trying to keep you flying in the right direction. That's all. That's all I was doing. I thought you were terrific. I think here's what I think. I think you very succinctly described what it was like to have ADHD. You didn't describe it because I couldn't get you to describe it, but you showed us an example of it. And I think it's very clear, and it's a great teaching tool for anybody who doesn't know what it is, for ADD or ADHD. I think that I think that you gave great examples of pathways that it led you to. I think I told a delightful story in the middle. We heard about a kid whose mom jumped into the podcast, learned how to do everything, put his A1C in the 5s. Then he got a little older. He's rebelling a little bit, and his A1C jumped up. I think it's an honest thing to say. I think it's going to be good for people to hear. I think that what you do next is most important, right? And that everybody gets the feeling that even if I get it perfect, it might not always be perfect.
That's where I'm trying to that's where I'm trying to be mentally. Like, okay, it's a bump in the road. I didn't think we were going to have it just because we started out real strong for quite a while now, but that's okay. It's still okay, right? This is what could happen.
100%.
And we know we have the tools. That's the thing. We have the tools. We have the podcast. I can't wait until he's open to listening to the podcast.
Well, I'm just saying, so you got off track there, that I thought you did a really good, I thought the conversation was really valuable for people. And those were some of the reasons why. So,
okay, great.
I am going to go now and say goodbye because I have to make a phone call for my personal life, and I need I have things I need to do. I have a whole life over here.
Oh, as do I.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. Hold on one second. I'd like to thank AG1 from Athletic Greens to remind you that if you're looking for a green drink that doesn't taste like crap, go to athleticgreens.com/juicebox. Use my link, please. It's in the show notes of this podcast app you're listening in right now at juiceboxpodcast.com or by typing it into a browser. athleticgreens.com/juicebox. And don't forget to find Touched by Type 1 at touchedbytype1.org. And lastly, a huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. Thanks so much to Julie for coming on the show and sharing the honesty of her story with her son and herself. Can't thank her enough. And especially at this time of year, I want to say how thankful I am for all of you for subscribing, following, listening, sharing the Juicebox Podcast. It's a huge success, and it is completely because of you. Everything that the podcast accomplishes comes directly from you listening, supporting, and sharing. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.